Hi, my name is Brandon and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery, and today I'm continuing to discuss The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer and going to talk a little bit about fear and control. I feel like this next part of the book is especially relevant to people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction. We're going to talk about fear, control, and how those two things interplay and cause so much of the chaos that often feeds the addiction and the addictive behaviors that we have in our active addiction, and how part of what we have to do as the work of recovery is to release that fear and stop protecting ourselves as much and stop trying to control the world around us. So let's get started. I'm going to read this section paragraph by paragraph because he says so much relevant stuff here. The exploration of self is inextricably interwoven with the unfolding of one's life. The natural ups and downs of life can either generate personal growth or create personal fears. Which of these dominates completely is completely dependent upon how we view change. Change can be viewed as either exciting or frightening, but regardless of how we view it, we must all face the fact that change is the very nature of life. If you have a lot of fear, you won't like change. You'll try to create a world around you that is predictable, controllable, and definable. You'll try to create a world that doesn't stimulate your fears. Fear doesn't want to feel itself. It actually is afraid of itself. So you utilize the mind in an attempt to manipulate life for the purpose of not feeling fear. All very important stuff. And this describes me and my addiction, and I know for a fact it describes many other people in their addiction. Many of our behaviors are driven by fear and the natural tendency to defend what we have grown comfortable with in life from the things that try to change it. And that includes our addiction and our addictive behavior. So he goes on to explain, people don't understand that fear is a thing. It's just another object in the universe that you are capable of experiencing. You can do one of two things with fear. You can recognize that you have it and work to release it, or you can keep it and try to hide from it. Because people don't deal with fear objectively, they don't understand it. They end up keeping this fear and trying to prevent things from happening that would stimulate it. They go through life attempting to create safety and control by defining how they need life to be in order to be okay. This is how the world becomes frightening. So when I first read this, I thought there's another way to live, because this defined my world. I went through life trying to create safety and control because I felt like control was something that I was supposed to have over life. I was supposed to have control over life and the world around me. In fact, at one point in my addiction, I really felt like the sphere of my control, the larger it grew, the better I was doing in life. And that's what that level of control, that defined how okay I was. And so anything that threatened that control became frightening. And fear in this case, we're talking about threats to what we perceive as the existence we want. And there's another thing he says in this paragraph that I think is really important. He says, in terms of fear, you can recognize that you have it and work to release it, or you can keep it and try to hide from it. And it's the work to release it part that really stands out. We're not trying to get rid of fear. We're not trying to push it away. We're trying to release it. And you got to recognize that there's a big difference between pushing something away and getting rid of it and just letting it go. Letting it go is a freeing thing. Pushing it away is another way of trying to maintain control. So this is a shift in perspective from that need for control into just letting things go. Again, very important for people in recovery. These are lessons that are taught all through 12-step programs and other programs of recovery. So very relevant stuff. So he goes on to say, um, this aspect of trying to control the world around you. He says, this may not sound frightening. It may sound safe, but it's not. If you do this, the world truly becomes threatening. Life becomes a me against it situation. When you have fear, insecurity, or weakness inside you, and you attempt to keep it from being stimulated, there will inevitably be events and changes in life that challenge your efforts. Because you resist these changes, you feel that you are struggling with life. You feel like this person is not behaving the way they should, and this event is not unfolding the way you want. You see situations that happened in the past as disturbing, and you see things down the road as potential problems. Your definitions of desirable and undesirable, as well as good and bad, all come about because you have defined how things need to be in order for you to be okay. And that last sentence is crucial. We've placed boundaries on what needs to happen for us to be okay. And that's where we start to have problems, and that's where we start to have fear, and that's where we start to feel the need to protect ourselves and our understanding of the way the world should be. So, a lot of our problems and a lot of the problems that we as addicts and alcoholics cause for ourselves stem from this kind of behavior, this protective behavior, this defining what is going to make things okay. And, I've heard it said before, until you're okay with losing everything you have, until you're okay with the idea that one day everything you have might be might be taken away from you, you will never truly find peace in life. And so that's what we have to break ourselves down to, is that, my peace in life is not defined by what my desires and what I would like to happen. My peace in life is defined by letting go of all of that and just being with whatever happens in life. So he goes on to explain, though, the thing about it is that all of us exhibit this kind of control over life. We want this level of control. In fact, we live in a society that rewards this level of control. So he talks about, we all know that we're doing this, but nobody questions it. We think we're supposed to figure out how life should be and then make it that way. Only someone who looks deeper and questions why we need the events of life to be a particular way will question this assumption. How did we come up with the notion that life is not okay just the way it is, or that it won't be okay the way it will be? Who said that the way life naturally unfolds is not all right? The answer is fear says so. The part of you inside that's not okay with itself can't face the natural unfolding of life because it's not under your control. If life unfolds in a way that stimulates your inner problems, then by definition, it's not okay. It's really very simple. That which doesn't disturb you is okay, and that which does disturb you is not. We define the entire scope of our outer experience based upon our inner problems. If you want to grow spiritually, you have to change that. If you are defining creation based upon the most messed up part of your being, what do you expect creation to look like? It's going to look like a frightful mess. I'm going to say that last one again because I really like that. If you are defining creation based upon the most messed up part of your being, what do you expect creation to look like? It's going to look like a frightful mess. So I'm going to leave it there for today. And just to sum up, he's really talking about here the idea that we, by defining the world around us, by creating these little categories and bubbles for everything to fit in, by saying how the world needs to be in order for us to be comfortable, and by placing conditions on our own happiness, we're actively preventing that happiness from happening. We're actively guaranteeing that we're going to encounter situations that challenge that happiness, that disturb us, And because of that perspective, we're not going to be able to deal with them peacefully. We're not going to be able to deal with them without creating further disturbance in life. And this is what happens with alcoholics and addicts, especially. We take these situations, we get disturbed by them, and we don't just hold on to our fear, we hold on to it and then try to forget it. So we kind of make that fear ours, and then we try to forget it, and in the process we wreak havoc on our lives and the lives of those around us. So we both want this control, and then we get out of control, and it creates this very special problem that can only be resolved when we start to really look at, why do we need this control? Is it really good for us to have this control? And isn't fear itself at the root of all of these problems that we seem to be having? So we'll get more into that tomorrow. If this sounds familiar to anyone working 12-step programs, it's because fear is cited there as one of the root of all of our problems. And so this should sound familiar to a lot of people, and that's why I love the way it's presented here, because it's just a slightly different way of putting some of the same things that we've heard during our program work, if we're working those kind of programs. It's also a slightly different way of putting the same kind of spiritual teachings that people have been passing down for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So this is really important stuff. And as we start to pick apart why we feel the need to be in control and what this fear is really doing to us, we'll start to get a glimpse of what life can be like if we can let go of those things. In the meantime, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you back here tomorrow with more.